Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the News Today edition of 16th of December. My name is Anuj and I will be taking this session. In today's session, we will be covering 4 main news and 9 quick updates. In main news, we will be covering about the Dowry death, as the Supreme Court has said that Dowry eradication is a urgent constitutional and social necessity. In the second news, we will be covering about the Viksit Bharat Shiksha Adhishthan bill of 2025, which has been recently introduced in Lok Sabha. In the third main news, we will be learning about the biosecurity, as this article is talking about India's imperative to fortify biosecurity. And in the last main news, we will be learning about the global value chain, as the global value chain development report 2025 has been released. In quick updates, we will be covering 9 quick updates in very brief. So this is a brief of today's session. Let us start with the first news. So the first news for today is that the Supreme Court has said that Dowry eradication is an urgent constitutional as well as a social necessity. Okay, so we will be learning about this act, what is the requirement, and what are the constitutional as well as the legal provision related to Dowry in India. It is related to GS paper 1, which talks about issues related to women. So let us begin the news discussion of this news. First of all, let us understand the development, what the Supreme Court has said and why the Supreme Court has said. So basically, the Supreme Court has passed a law, a slew of direction in the case of state of UP versus Ajmal Beg to tackle Dowry evil and enforce provision through the Dowry Provision Act of 1961. So this is the basic development. Okay, so here there was a lady, Nasreen, which was around 20 years of age when she was killed by her in-laws. Supreme Court has said that the life was so precious, but it was compared to a motorcycle, a television, and 15,000 of cash. So Supreme Court has said that this is a very grim situation where a life of a person is compared to some objects like motorcycle, 15,000 of cash, and color TV. In the same judgment, Supreme Court has said that the youth has to be educated regarding the issue of Dowry. And Dowry is a traditionally very deep rooted in Indian society. That's why you can see that people are openly talking about Dowry, even the educated youth as well as non-educated youth. And Supreme Court has said that there is a oscillation in this act, whereas there is a issue regarding the implementation of this act, and there is also issue of misuse of this act. So Supreme Court has said that we have to balance it, that first of all implementation should be in full spirit and there should not be any misuse of this act by any frivolous complaints. But if there is a complaint which is true, then there should be implementation on ground to protect our women. Okay, so the situation at that time was so grim that there was a advertisements on TV that how you can protect women if she is burning, how you can minimize the effect of burn. So you can understand the situation, how grim it was. Okay, then situation has improved. We will be learning about the situation and why this act is so essential for our society. Then we will be discussing some PYQ at end of this news. So let us begin with the Supreme Court's observation. So what are the Supreme Court direction? First of all, the Supreme Court has said that there is a need for appointment of Dowry provision officers. Okay, and their whereabouts and their information should be revealed in every office so that the person can go to them, and they are to be established under Dowry Provision Act by the state government. That is the first direction given by the Supreme Court. In the second direction, the Supreme Court has said there is a requirement of expeditious disposal of pending cases. In this direction, the Supreme Court has requested the High Court. There is a need to remove disposal of cases so that there is a fair justice, and cases which are related to section 304B, which is related to dowry death, and section 498A, which is related to cruelty. Okay, so the third direction is given by the Supreme Court about the training of official. And what kind of training? So that they are sensitized towards this issue, as well as training regarding the frivolous complaints. Okay, so they should know that this issue is very sensitive, and they should also know that if there is a false complaint, they can observe it. Okay, this is the third direction which is given by the Supreme Court. Lastly, Supreme Court has said that there are other requirements such as running of a grassroots awareness program. So Supreme Court has said that it is a social issue, that's why it will take time, but there is a requirement of awareness, there is a requirement of implementation in full letters. Okay. Supreme Court has also talked about changes in education curriculum so that people who are going for study, they should know about the issue of dowry. As well as they have said that if some people have not attended the formal education, they should be made aware about the evil of dowry, and it should not be glorified in the society. That is a issue in Indian society, that dowries, if you might seeing the reels, you might notice that some people are giving a dowry and saying it in a large volume. That is a issue in Indian society. Supreme Court has noted this and given the direction. Okay, so this was about the direction given by the Supreme Court. Now let us look into the dowry in India. Basically, it is defined in India, and it is defined under the Dowry Provision Act of 1961. And what is the definition? The definition is any property or valuable security given or agreed to either directly or indirectly by one party to a marriage to other party to the marriage at or before any time of marriage. Basically, it is talking about transaction of valuable and invaluable product directly or indirectly at the time of marriage, before the marriage, or after the marriage. That is the definition of dowry under the Dowry Provision Act of 1961. Secondly, there is increase in the cases related to dowry. Okay, you might have read about the NCRB report which have been released last month. So it has observed that there is a 14% increase in 2023 with more than 15,000 cases recorded across the country and over 6,100 deaths reported throughout the year. That is given by the NCRB report, okay, which was released last month. Okay, so these are the issues related and the definition related to dowry in India. Now let us look into how we tackle dowry in India. So first of all, there is a Dowry Provision Act of 1961. It provides for a punishment. Here there is one more important information. It was passed by joint parliament, and there are other two acts as well which was passed by joint parliament. There are only 3 acts which have been passed by joint parliament in India. One of which is Dowry Provision Act of 1961. Then there is a Prevention of Terrorism Act of 2002. Then there is a Banking Commission Service Regulation. It is of 1978. So this information is important for your prelims examination, that only 3 acts have been passed by the Joint Parliament of India. Then there is National Commission for Women, NCW. Okay, it reviews law and make them more stringent and investigate complaint regarding the dowry harassment. Okay, that is the second step. Then there are provision under Bharatiya Nyaya Sahita. We have already talked about 304B of IPC, which was section 80 of BNS, which is section 80 of BNS covers dowry death. Okay, lastly, protection of women from domestic violence act of 2005. Okay, so these are the steps taken by our government to curb dowry in India. Now let us look at the PYQ related to this news. Some PYQs are directly related and some PYQs are indirectly related. The first PYQ is from 2023 mains paper GS1. Do you think marriage as a sacrament is losing its value in modern India? So you might be aware that marriage is seen as sacrament in India. So this was the observation made by the Madras High Court at that time. That's why the question which have come in the GS1 paper of mains examination, and you can look at the the issues, how this statement is correct, and also the points which are against this point. Then you can conclude accordingly. Okay. Second question is the National Commission for Women able to strategize and tackle the problem that women faces in both public and private sphere? And what does the private sphere include? It includes the issue of dowry. It includes the issue of rapes, as rapes in India are mostly done by the person known to the woman. So these are the questions which have come indirectly from this news, and you can frame a answer in your mind, and that's why you can analyze the previous year question related to a news. So this was all in the first news. Let us discuss the second news for today. So the second news is related to Viksit Bharat Shiksha Adhishthan Bill of 2025, which has been introduced in Lok Sabha. In this news, we will be learning about this bill, its key provision, and what was the requirement of this bill. It is related to GS paper 2, which talks about important aspects of governance. So let us begin the discussion of this news. First of all, the development. We have already discussed the context. Now let us come to the development. So the aim of this bill is to empower the higher educational institutions of India to achieve the excellence through effective coordination and advancing the new education policy of 2020. So this is the basic aim of this bill. And this bill also talk about SDG 4. SDG 4 is related to quality education. Then this bill also talks about gross enrollment ratio at the higher educational institutions. According to the recent survey, the gross enrollment ratio in the higher educational institution is about 28%. And what is our target? The target, according to the new education policy of 2020, is of 50%. Such types of facts is very important whenever you are covering such news. First of all, education is related to SDG 4, which talks about quality education. Then this bill also talks about the gross enrollment ratio, which is around 28% in 2022, and our target is of 50% by 2035 according to new educational policy. Okay, and education as a subject is under concurrent list in schedule 7. That means state as well as the center can frame the law regarding the education. But when it comes to the standardization of the education at the higher institution or the educational institution, that's fall under the union list, which is of center entry 66. Okay, so the center is bringing this law. And what is the aim of this bill? The aim is to empower higher education institution of India to achieve excellence through effective coordination and advancing the new education policy 2020 vision. Okay, there is an issue in the education system of India. If you go to any student, suppose you are going to a student who is there in 8th class and you ask him or her to draw a picture, and there are high chances that 8 or 9 student out of 10 will draw a similar picture, that is of two mountains and from which a sun is coming out. That is the low creativity which has been imparted by education system of India. So this bill aim to improve our education system, especially at the higher level and higher educational institution. We have already discussed the key facts that it is related to SDG 4, which talks about quality education. It talks about increasing the gross enrollment ratio. Basically, what is gross enrollment ratio? It is number of students which are there in the higher education to the total population in that age group into 100. That is the gross enrollment ratio. And according to the recent survey, it was at the 28% and the target is of 50% by 2035. Now let us discuss the key provision which are given in this bill. Okay, first of all, it has repealed 3 acts. And what are those acts? First one is UGC Act of 1956. Then All India Council of Technical Education Act of 1987 has been repealed, and then National Council for Teachers Education Act of 1993 has also been repealed by this bill. Second important provision which is there in this act is that it established a Viksit Bharat Shiksha Adhishthan, VBSC, as a over governing body. Okay. There is an issue of fragmentation of regulation in India. Recently, there was a parliamentary committee report which talks about issues of autonomous institutions of Ministry of Education, and it include UGC, okay, and the other autonomous institutions. In that report, the parliamentary committee has particularly pointed out that there are issues of over-regulation as well as the fragmentation of regulation. So this bill will cater to all the issues which are there in the higher education regarding to the regulation. Okay, this Viksit Bharat Shiksha Adhishthan will act as a umbrella commission to regulate higher education in India. Okay, and it will have a president and member not more than 12, which will be appointed by President of India. Okay, this is an important aspect for your prelims if this bill becomes an act. So how this commission or the Viksit Bharat Shiksha Adhishthan will have its members, they will be appointed by the President of India. Thirdly, its coverage. Okay, it covers all the higher education institutions which are under the purview of Ministry of Education or UGC or AICTE or NCTE. Okay, so basically it will cover all these institutions. In this report, they have also talked about then when this act was there, UGC Act, there was around only 1000 educational institutions in India. But presently, there are around 60,000 higher educational institutes in India which are catering to around 4 crore students. So for giving them better education, this act is there. Okay, so it is revamping the overall regulation of higher education in India. Okay, the other provision of this act are basically it talks about the formation of three council under the overall guidance of VBSA, Viksit, Bharat, Shiksha, Adhishthan. There will be three council, and what are those three councils? Viksit Bharat Shiksha Vinayaman Parishad, which is related to regulatory council. Then other is Viksit Bharat Shiksha Gunvatta Parishad, which is related to accreditation council. Then Viksit Bharat Shiksha Manak Parishad, which is related to standard council. Okay, these three will be the three council under the VBSA. Then it also proposed the formation of Council of Architecture, which will be established under the Architect Act of 1972. And what function it will do? Basically, it will look into the curriculum, okay, of the higher standard as well as the regulation aspect. Sorry, the standard aspect. It won't have any power related to regulation. That's an important aspect. It won't have any power related to regulation. It will there for standardization of curriculum as well as the standardization of research and innovation in an higher institute such as universities. That will be the function of Council of Architecture, which has been proposed in this bill. Okay. Lastly, it enhance the enforcement power. And basically, the regulatory council can impose penalties in the case of violation from 10 lakhs to 2 crores. That are the main provision under this act. Okay. Now coming to the PYQ related to this news. The first PYQ is from 2012 prelims examination. And the question is, which of the following provision of the Constitution does India have a bearing on education? It is a very thoughtful question which was given in the prelims examination. And the option are 1, directive principle of state policy, 2, rural and urban local bodies, 3, 5th schedule, 4, 6th schedule, and 5th, 7th schedule. We have already talked about the 7th schedule, that it has a bearing on the education. Then coming to the DPSP's article 45, which talks about the early child education. So it have bearing on the education. Then rural and urban local bodies are also involved in the education. Then 5th and 6th schedule also talked about education of the tribal communities. So all the statements which are given are the answer. Then answer will be D, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now coming to a PYQ from the mains perspective, and this question was there in 2020. And the question is, National Education Policy 2020 is in conformity with the Sustainable Development Goal of 4. We have talked about it. The Sustainable Development Goal 4 talks about quality education. It intends to restructure and reorient the education system in India, critically examine the statement. So this question can be directly solved with our discussion. You have to critically analyze how the new education policy try to restructure and reorient the education system of India, and how it is in with conformity with the SDG goal of 4. So this was all about the second main news. Let us move to the third main news for today. So the third main news is about the biosecurity. And the context is about the India's imperative to fortify the biosecurity. In this news, we will be learning about biosecurity, what are the provision, why India needs to look at the biosecurity aspect, and what are the global as well as the Indian initiative or laws related to biosecurity. It is related to paper 3, which talks about internal security. So let us discuss this news. So first of all, let us discuss the definition of biosecurity. Basically, it refers to the set of practices and system designed to deter the intentional use of biological agent, toxin or technologies. So you might have seen many movies where biological agent are used to kill the spy. That is the basic meaning of biosecurity, and it is different from biosafety. That is a different aspect. Biosafety only talks about the accidental leakage of pathogen from a lab, but biosecurity is an overall architecture which talks or refers to the set of practices and system designed to the intentional misuse of biological agent, toxin or technologies. And these agent and toxin are not only for humans, they are also for livestock as well as for the environment. Okay, you might have read about the One Health approach. Okay, in One Health approach, we talk about the health of animals, we talk about health of humans and the health of environment. This is the One Health approach, and biosecurity refers to the protection of overall health from the biological agent, toxin or the technologies. So this is the basic definition of biosecurity, and it is different from biosafety. Okay, now let us discuss why there is a requirement for India to have a proper biosecurity. First of all, we are dependent on agriculture and food security. Okay, sorry, we are dependent on agriculture and livestock. Why agriculture is important? Because we need food safety, and it is also economically important because it contributes about 16 to 17% of our GDP. Then coming to the livestock, as the biological agent can also target the livestock, and livestock contribute around 5% of Indian GDP. Then second issue related to India is geographical. Our borders are porous and we are densely populated at our borders as well. That is the second issue. Third, non-state actors threat. Directly, there has not been any major concern regarding biosecurity in India. But indirectly, we have seen that non-state actors were using ricin. What is ricin? It is a toxic material which is produced from the castor oil. If you have seen the Breaking Bad series, you might know about ricin. In this, that was used in the cigarette to kill one of the proponent in the series. Okay, that was a major twist in that series. So basically here, it is important that ricin was used by the non-state actors in India. That's why its threats is there. At the fourth point, it is the biotechnological proliferation. And why it is important? Because we are using biology for our advantage. And if we can use something, we can misuse that thing similarly. If we know about the usage of one thing, we will also know about the misuse of that thing. And in biotechnology, we are changing biology. That's why there is an increase in threat. At the last point, there is issue of public health. And why it is important? Because WHO has said that around 60 to 70% new diseases are transferred from animals to human. So these are the imperative, or these are the needs why India need a proper structure for biosecurity. Now let us discuss the next slide. The next slide is related to way forward. First of all, we should have a legislative and regulatory framework. Okay, India need a dedicated biosecurity law. By this information, we come to conclude that India does not have a dedicated biosecurity law. And there is a dilemma, that is the dual use dilemma. What it means, that basically these biological compounds are also used for the betterment of humanity, but they can be also used for the detrimental effect. Okay. Secondly, we can adopt the global model, which integrate health, defense, and the biotech. And from where we can learn? From the US National Biodefense Strategy. What does it do? It basically integrate health, defense, and the biotech components. There are other acts as well as there in Australia as well. So basically we can learn from the global acts. Secondly, there is requirement of nodal biosecurity agency. Presently, different organizations look at the aspect of biosecurity, such as Department of Biotechnology or the Department of Animal and Livestock or the Plant Quarantine Organization. These organizations are working independently, but there is no coordination. That's why there is requirement of National Biosecurity Agency, which will streamline the interagency coordination across the health. At the third point, there is requirement of increase in research and development. This is a very basic point. Basically, whenever you are talking about a new technology, you can write about the need for increase in research and development. Lastly, there is requirement of new age biodefense technology. In this, we can include the social media surveillance. That means we can look upon the social media, like how they are talking and what kind of talks are going on the social media. Then there also talks about the microbial forensics. So these can be the new age biotechnological defense. So these were the way forward which were given in this article. Now let us look into the various global as well as the national framework to deal with the biosecurity. First of all, biological weapon. First of all, the Biological Weapon Convention of 1975. It was new. It was there in news in last week. Why? Because it has completed 50 years. Whenever a convention or a body completed 50 years or 25 years, it becomes very important for UPSC examination. And India is part of this convention. And it talks about legally binding international treaty on banning of biological agent. And it is a first international treaty which talks about the destruction of mass weapon destruction. Okay, so this is a legally binding international treaty which bans the biological agents, and they are considered as the weapons of mass destruction. And this is a first treaty which bans a weapons of mass destruction. That is an extreme statement. This convention has completed its 50 year. That's why this type of statement become very important. Secondly, there is Australia Group, which is an informal international forum to coordinate export control, preventing the chemical and the biological weapon. Basically, this group was joined by India in 2018, and there was indirect question in the prelims examination. So that's why you can consider these type of information and how they are important for your prelims examination or for your mains examination. Now coming to India, first of all, there is Environmental Protection Act of 1986, which governs the hazardous as well as the genetically modified organization. When we talked about biotechnology, we also talked about the genetically modified organization, and which are governed by the Environmental Protection Act of 1986. Then there is Weapon of Mass Destruction and Their Delivery System, Provision of Unlawful Activity Act of 2005, which criminalizes the biological weapon. In this also we have talked about the weapon of mass destructions. Okay. Lastly, there are other acts as well, such as Biosafety Rules of 1989. Then there is National Disaster Management Authority Guideline on the biological safety. So these are the various initiatives, global as well as at the domestic level, to deal with the biosecurity. Now we will discuss one PYQ which is indirectly related to this news. The PYQ is from 2020 prelims examination, and the question is, consider the following pairs: international agreement or setup. Then subject: first, Atma Ata declaration. Is it related to healthcare of the people? So this is an correct statement. This is related to healthcare of the people. Second, Hague Convention, sorry, it is related to biological and chemical weapon. Basically, Hague Convention is related to ballistic missiles, and biological and chemical weapons are related to Australia group. It was there in news at that time because India joined the Australia group in 2018. So this statement or this option become wrong. Then there are Talanoa dialogues which are related to global climate change. It is an also correct pairing. Then there is under two coalition. The option given is child right, but this is also related to climate, so that also become wrong. Then option is 1 and 3, C. The answer is C, 1 and 3 only. So this was all about this news. Let us discuss the fourth main news for today. So the fourth main news for today is about the global value chain. And it is there in news because the global value chain development report of 2025 has been released. In this news, we will be learning about global value chain, their significance, and what are the key highlights given in this report. Then there is one PYQ which is indirectly related to this news, but information from this news can be given in that question. And it is related to GS paper 3, which talks about the economic development. So let us discuss this news. First of all, the development. Okay, so this report, which has been titled as Rewiring Global Value Chains in a Changing Global Economy, is a joint publication by Asian Development Bank, WTO, and the World Economic Forum. So this is a report which has been jointly released by Asian Development Bank, WTO, and World Economic Forum. So before moving further, let us understand what is the meaning of global value chain. So basically, when you do production, there are various things which comes under production. There is research, there is manufacturing, there is distribution, there are various aspects in production. If these various aspects are there in different countries, minimum of 2, then such type of production will be called as global value chain. And what is value in that? Basically, value chain means that these countries will be adding some value to that global value chain. That's why the name global value chain. And in one of its report by OECD, it has said that the 70% of trade is due to global value chain. That is the importance of global value chain. And it consists of forward as well as the backward linkages. Basically, if some country is importing the raw material from the other country for production, then it will be known as the backward linkage. And if some country is transporting the raw material or the intermediary material for production in the different country, then it will be known as the forward linkage. Okay? That is about the global value chain. Let us understand by a one product that might be favorite of many of your students, Apple. Where research and innovation take place in the case of Apple? USA. Where its manufacturing mostly take place or used to take place? China, and in countries like India, Vietnam, and other countries. Where are the warehouses for the Apple products? It is there in, again, USA. Then USA will look after its distribution in the various countries. So this is an example of global value chain. At every stage, there is addition of value in terms of economy. That is the basic meaning of global value chain. Now let us understand the basic findings of this report. Okay. First of all, it's said that the globalization is rewiring but not reversal. Basically, it is adjusting due to some of the factors like the technological change, green transition, and shifting of the geopolitical concerns. Like there are tariff issue, there are wars going on between Russia and Ukraine, Israel and Hamas, so that there is rewiring but not reversal. And it has been supported by data where this has said that the global share in trade has reduced to 46.3% from 48%, which was at peak in 2022. So that means there is no reversal but rewiring. That is the first major observation by this report. Second, it talks about rise of service and digital services. When we were reading about the fall of Indian rupee, then also we have discussed that there is decrease in the export of goods but not services. So this report has also highlighted that there is rise of services and digital trade. So basically, service has surpassed goods in the global value chain participation. And it especially talks about India, as India has strengthened its integration in global value chain due to its robust growth in the digital service export. We have also discussed, or we have already discussed, that India's export in service has not reduced, but the export in the trade part, or sorry, the goods part has reduced somewhat, but not in the services. Okay, so these are the two major findings of this report. Now let us discuss the other major finding of this report. It also talks about the dominance of regions. And what are the regions which are dominating? First of all, Asia, then America, and then Europe. But there are some regions which are not able to properly integrate into global value chain, and those regions are Latin America and Africa. Okay. This report also talks about emerging trend. First of all is reshoring. This term was there in news after the COVID. Reshoring, friendshoring, nearshoring, offshoring. These were the terms which were there in the news after the COVID. So what is the meaning of these terms? First of all, reshoring. When you bring back one of your production entity to your own country, that is the basic meaning of reshoring. So this report had highlighted that there is rise in reshoring in China, EU and US, which has reduced their dependence on foreign value addition. So basically reshoring means bringing back their production to their own country. And what is friendshoring and nearshoring? Basically nearshoring means bringing back the production to your neighboring countries. If I am India, I will bring my production unit to the neighboring countries such as Sri Lanka or Bangladesh. Then what is friendshoring? Basically taking your production to a country which has same values like you is the term used for the friendshoring. So these terms are also important: friendshoring, nearshoring, and reshoring. There is also one term that is offshoring, that which is clear from its name as well, which means that taking the production to a different country. That is the meaning of offshoring. Second emerging trend is the diversification of manufacturing. This is despite of the China's dominance. Whenever we talk about China, we talk about its dominance in manufacturing, and this report has highlighted that there is diversification in manufacturing, although there is the dominance of China, and it is supported by one example, that is China account for around 77% of global EV production. Lastly, it has said that India is among 10 value adding economies. We talk about the global value chain, we talked about the value addition. So it has said that India is among 10 countries or among 10 value addition economies which account for 2.8% of the global domestic value added in export in 2025. Lastly, we will discuss about the significance of global value chain, why it is important. First of all, it leads to reduction in poverty, and it is supported by finding of World Bank. It has said that 1% in global value chain participation is estimated to boost the per capita income of the country by twice when compared to the conventional trade. Okay, if 1% increase is there in the global value chain participation, it will lead to double down in the per capita income when compared to the traditional conventional trade, and it is the finding of World Bank. Secondly, it also leads to employment creation, and especially in the industry is labor intensive, as well as it lead to the increase in the female force participation, and it is supported by the example of Bangladesh. It has said that GVC oriented export apparel sector in Bangladesh had led to its economic empowerment of the women as well as the labor intensive industries. Lastly, it has said that there will be economic growth due to participation in global value chain, then increased productivity as well as specialization, as there will be inputs from the different countries. Then also talks about the promote trade competitiveness and the market access. As your product speciality will increase, it will lead to increase in the competitiveness as well as it will lead to the better access to the market. So this was all about the fourth news. Let us discuss one PYQ which was there in the last year mains examination. And the question was, what are the challenges before the Indian economy when the world is moving away from free trade and multilateralism to protectionism and bilateralism? How can these challenges be met? In this question, one point can be better global value chains and India's participation in global value chain. Okay, so this was all about this news. Now let us discuss the quick update for today. Okay, so the first quick update is about Ekam AI and Sambhav project. And it is there in the news because Indian Army has showcases the Ekam AI and Sambhav as the part of Vijay Divas. And when is Vijay Divas is celebrated and why Vijay Divas is celebrated? Basically, Vijay Divas is celebrated on 16th of December, and it is celebrated because we have liberated the Bangladesh. Okay, so we are celebrating Vijay Divas, and as part of it, Indian Army has showcases the Ekam AI and the Sambhav project. So in this news, we will be learning about the Ekam AI and the Sambhav. Basically, Ekam AI is a fully indigenous and secure artificial intelligence platform which is designed for sensitive environment. So basically, to be fully secure, we are developing our own artificial intelligence platform so that we don't have to divulge our information to the foreign companies, especially in the matter of the security. That's why this platform has been developed, and the name of the development project or the project is Ekam AI. Then coming to the Sambhav. Basically, it is a portable communication system that provide mobile connectivity using the satellite. And for what this can be used? Basically, this can be used in different terrains or difficulty terrains at the time of disaster or the wars, where you can use the device directly, which is directly connected to satellite, and that can be used for better communication. So this was the first quick update. Moving to the second quick update. Second quick update is about the UN Alliance of Civilization. So basically, its 11th forum meet has taken place in Saudi Arabia, its capital Riyadh. That is a major development related to this news, not for your prelims examination or mains examination. For your mains examination or prelims examination, you can learn about the UN Alliance of the Civilization. And it has marked 2 decades of bridging the divides. Basically, it was formed in 2005 by UN. Okay, after there was a bombing in USA, and the other countries, where they have talked about that religion differences should not become as a threat. So this alliance basically promote the integration of various civilization. That's why they name UN Alliance of Civilization. Now let's understand about it. Its secretariat is there in New York, and it was launched in 2005, as we have discussed, and it was proposed by the countries such as Turkey and Spain. And we have already discussed its aim, and its, let us read out its objective. Basically, it maintain a global network of partners, including state, international and regional organizations, civil societies group, to improve cross-cultural relation between the diverse nation and the communities. Basically, this is unity in diversity approach, for which India is an example. Okay. And the name of the alliance is UN Alliance of Civilization. This was all about this update. Now let us move to the third news. Third news is about the Petra and the Ellora caves. Ellora caves are very important for your prelims as well as your mains examination. And what is the development? The development is that India and Jordan has signed a twinning agreement between UNESCO's heritage site of Petra and Ellora caves, renowned for their rock-cut architecture. You might be aware about the Kailash temple, which was carved out from a rock, which is there in Ellora caves. And Petra caves are there in South Jordan. Jordan as a country is also important because we have seen that UPSC has asked many times question related to the Middle Eastern countries. In this news, we will be learning about Ellora caves and briefly about the Petra caves. If you know about that these are the rock-cut caves and they are there in the Jordan, that will be significant or sufficient for your examination. But for Ellora caves, you have to be very much aware about what are the architectures there. So basically, its location is there in Maharashtra near the Elaganga rivers. There was a previous year question where they have talked about the Ellora caves and on which stream it is there. So here we are Ajanta caves and on which stream that Ajanta caves are there. Here we are talking about Ellora caves, and Ellora caves are near Elaganga river. Then its origin, it's carved out between 600 to 1000 CE, predominantly by the Rashtrakutas and the Yadava dynasties. Okay, and we have also talked about that these are the rock cut caves, and it has all the religion, that is Buddhism, Jainism and the Hinduism. And there are mural paintings as well related to these three religion. And what are mural paintings basically? These are the paintings which are directly drawn on the walls. There are many examples of these paintings, such as Worli painting. Worli paintings are not here, but I am talking about the such different type of mural paintings. But mural paintings are there in these caves, and of all the religion, that is Hinduism, Buddhism as well as the Jainism, mural paintings as well as the architecture is there in the Ellora caves. Now coming to the Petra cave, we have already discussed what is important for your examination. Let us read out its information. These are also known as Rhodes City due to its pink sandstone cliff, and it was the capital of the Nabatean kingdom in the 4th century BC. And in this, some of the architecture is half built and other is the half carved into the rocks. So this was all about the Ellora caves and the Petra caves and the context which was there in the news. Now moving to the next news. Next news is related to exercise Ekatha. So basically, this is an exercise between the Indian Navy and the Maldivian Navy. And the context here is that the Deputy Chief of the Naval Staff is an official visit to Maldives to attend the closing ceremony of the 8th edition of the exercise Ekatha. We have other exercise with Maldives as well, Equivarian, which is of Indian Army with the Maldivesian Army. This is the exercise of Indian Navy with the Maldivesian Navy. Then we have Operation Cactus in 1988, which was there to protect the Maldivesian coup. So these are the information which is related to the India and the Maldives, related to the security. Okay, so this much is significant, or this much is sufficient for this news. Okay, so basically this exercise was established in 2017, and this was its 8th edition, and it is an annual bilateral maritime exercise between Indian Navy and the Maldives National Defense Force. Moving to the next quick update. The next quick update is about the Central Information Commission. And why this is in the news? Because recently the Ras Goel assumed the charge as the Chief Information Commissioner. Okay, he has been charged with the Chief Information Commissioner. In this news, we will be learning about the position of Chief Information Commissioner and what is its genesis. For everyone, it is very important to know about the RTI Act, not only for UPSC examination, but for your general life as well. So the genesis of this commissioner is there in the RTI Act of 2005, and it is a statutory body. What is its function? Its function is to receive and inquire into complaint from the citizen regarding the RTI Act. RTI Act was there in the news when there was the announcement of DP rules 2025. So basically there was apprehensions that rules will somewhat determine or lessen the impact of the RTI Act. So please read about why RTI Act was there in the news. Okay, so there are occurrence of this news, the news related to RTI due to DP rules. It has completed 20 years now. There has been appointment of the Chief Information Commissioner. So you should know about RTI Act and its provision in very detailed. Coming to its appointment, Chief Information Commissioner and the Information Commissioner are appointed by the committee which is headed by Honorable Prime Minister, and its members include the leader of opposition of the Lok Sabha as well as a union minister which is nominated by the Prime Minister. So this is the appointment of Chief Information Commissioner. And there was RTI Amendment Act in 2019, which was there in news because the term of office, salaries and allowance and the other condition of services will be determined by the central government. This was changed by an amendment in 2019, which has changed the term of office, salaries, allowance and the other condition of services that will be determined by the central government. So this was all about this news. Let us move to the next quick update. So the next quick update is about the National Energy Conservation Award. And why it is in news? Because Chandigarh has secured the first position in these awards for efforts in energy conservation and the efficiency, which is given for union territories and state. Let us understand about these awards. Whenever you are writing your mains answers or there is a direct question about these awards, you can write about that. In mains answer, you can support your answer wherever you are talking about initiative for better energy utilization by India. So basically these awards are given annually by Bureau of Energy Efficiency. And what are these awards given for? These are awards given for to recognize the outstanding achievement in the energy efficiency. And these are based on the State Energy Efficiency Index. So basically this index is a comprehensive national assessment framework which is developed by Bureau of Energy Efficiency in collaboration with Alliance for an Energy Efficient Economy. So basically they grade the various institution or various state based on their energy efficiency. So this award is given for the energy conservation as well as the efficiency. Now let us move to the next quick update. So the next quick update is about nitrofurans. If you are reading news or looking into the Twitter or some other social media website, you might be aware that some independent organization has taken the sample of eggs from a particular company and they have found out the nitrofurans in those eggs. Now here the news is related to the development after that news, and the develop context here is that the Food Safety and Standard Authority of India, FSAI, has directed its regional offices to collect sample of eggs for testing the presence of nitrofuran residuals. So in this news, we will be learning about what are nitrofurans. So basically, these are class of broad spectrum antibiotics, and its example includes furazolidone and nitrofurazone. Okay, if these terms appear in your examination and there is a question that these terms are related to what? That these are broad spectrum antibiotics. And where they are used, they are basically used in veterinary drugs for antibacterial and anti-inflammatory purposes. But they are banned in India for those animals who produces the food. It's an important fact that these are banned in India for the animals who are used for food producing. And why they are banned? Because they are genotoxic. That means that they can destroy the genetic diversity or the genetic information. They are mutagenic. That means they can mutate and can lead to AMR, as well as they are carcinogenic. That means they can lead to the formation of cancer. That's why this news was going on in the news, and now FSSAI has taken a step towards that information. Moving to the next quick update. The next quick update is about the Chula and the Dokla passes. And why it is there in news? Because Chola and the Doklama passes in Sikkim are opened for battlefield tourism under the Bharat Ranbhumi Darshan initiative. In this news, we will be learning about these two passes as well as the Bharat Ranbhumi Darshan initiative. And what is Bharat Ranbhumi Darshan initiative? Basically, it is a joint initiative between Indian Army and Ministry of Tourism for citizens to visit historical war zones as well as the sites of the military significance with the permission. So here, let us clearly understand what is the initiative of Bharat Ranbhumi Darshan is there. Basically, this initiative is a joint initiative between the Indian Army and the Ministry of Tourism for citizens to visit the historical war zone at the site of the military significance. So this is the initiative. Now coming to those passes here, which we have discussed, which those are Chola passes. So basically, it is there in Chola range of eastern Himalayas, particularly in the Sikkim, and it is related, it is there nearby the Nathula and Jeepla passes, which is also there in these range in the Sikkim. Now coming to the Dokla passes, which are there in the news in 2017 because of the direct conflict between India and China at this pass. Doklam Pass. So basically, it is there in East Sikkim on the edge of the Doklam Plateau, which is at the tri-junction of China, India and Bhutan. And Chola Passes connect Sikkim and the Chumbi Valley. And there was India and China skirmish in the 1967 at this pass. So these passes have been opened, and these passes have been opened under the Bharat Ranbhumi Darshan, and Bharat Ranbhumi Darshan is a joint initiative between Indian Army and Ministry of Tourism for citizens to visit the historical war zones. So this was all about this news. Let us move to the next and the last quick update for today. The last quick update is about Dhruva 64. And why it is there in news? Because India has launched the Dhruva 64 microprocessors. What are microprocessors? Basically, microprocessors are the brains of the electronic device, such as your computer, such as your mobile. And that's why this is an important information, because this is totally indigenously produced. Now let us understand about Dhruva 64. Basically, it is first 1 gigahertz 64 bits dual core fully indigenous microprocessor. We have already understand about microprocessor. It is developed by the Center for Development for Advanced Computing under the Microprocessor Development Program. There is a separate program for the development of microprocessors. That's why you can understand the importance of the microprocessor. There are other microprocessors as well, such as Shakti, which was developed by IIT Madras in 2018, Ajit, developed by IIT Bombay in 2018, Vikram, developed by ISRO in 2025, then Tejas 64, which was previously developed by same company or the same department, which was CDEC. And its significance, basically India consume about 20% of microprocessor which are produced globally. Okay, so this was about this news. With this, we have completed the discussion of today's news today. For reading further about our current affairs initiative, you can visit our digital current affairs website, and you can also solve the smart quizzes there and also solve the question which are visible on your screen. Thank you and all the best for your preparation.